Hi, I'm Annalisa Liefers, and I recently read a new book by Alec Ross, and he is the Distinguished Visiting Fellow at Johns Hopkins University, and he wrote something called The Industries of the Future. And he used to work as a senior advisor of innovation for former Secretary of State Clinton. And his world travels gave him a really interesting view of trends and things that were going on in the world, and he decided to go ahead and kind of put all of his thoughts together in this text. Now, in this text, he covers 6 different trends that will really shape and affect the world that you and I live in. And I thought I would walk through those things and just give you a few thoughts in terms of what I took away from the book. So the first thing he talked about was robotics, and how this is really, we already know that it's really transformed a lot of our working landscape, but it's going to go even further than what we see today. As opposed to robotics taking jobs, robots themselves will become additional laborers right alongside to care for us as we become a more aging population. This is very evident in Japan, where they have a need of 4 million nursing aides by the year 2025, and they currently only have 1.5, so the math doesn't work, it's upside down. Well, what the Japanese government has done is given incentives to companies like Toyota and Honda to the tune of $25 million to go ahead and develop very sophisticated robots that do everything from help a person stand up, to actually lifting a person, to actually becoming a companion of sorts. There is a stuffed animal, if you can believe it or not, in Japan that looks something like a harp seal. This is a polar bear, I understand, but it's soft and cuddly like this, and apparently when you touch it, it will vibrate and purr. Now, as opposed to my $23 Gund here, this device in Japan will cost you $6,000, and here in the US it's classified as a medical 2 device. So this is not something that is just, we think of kind of George Jetson. This is actually very real, and it's happening right now. Right alongside that, in terms of robotics helping us age well and caring for us, we're also going to change the way that we care for ourselves. What do I mean by that? Well, today you take a very sort of generic, maybe multivitamin to help keep yourself healthy. Well, going forward, it's not going to be generic. This will be what takes care of you. This will be how you manage your health. It will be your DNA, your fingerprint. And there's no better example of this right now than the research that is going on and the developments of genomic testing and, say, cancer research. There are certain types of cancer that are completely done at the cellular level now. And it is something that is certainly has a very strong moral and ethical component, but the science is racing ahead so fast that what was an exorbitant price tag to just even have testing done is now coming down pretty significantly, and is something that the experts think will be affordable for us all in the very near future. Now, as we've gone from taking care of ourselves, we've also had a big change in terms of how we just do our everyday lives. There was a time when this would buy you a cup of coffee. Well, now you need many of these. But we went from this to this, right, in pretty short order. And this helps, this is really kind of very yesteryear to pay for something like this. What is happening now is money is becoming completely virtual. And there's no better example of that than Bitcoin. Now, Bitcoin is not really a coin. It actually just simply lives in the cloud. But it is a virtual currency. You have things like Litecoin, and then Ethereum, which is one of the newest ones that just launched not too long ago. But all of these are very similar in that they are built upon the concept of what's called a blockchain. And the blockchain is a record of every single transaction from the very beginning of the inception of the currency. So it's pretty powerful in terms of being unhackable. However, having said that, the Bitcoin and the blockchain are great, but the infrastructure around it is really where we still have some very strong either security leaks, or that's where things can be compromised. Purveyors of virtual currency are doing very extreme things like setting up their data warehouses in extreme points of the earth, or hiding them, and to keep the data safe, to keep their Bitcoin safe. Ross argues that despite that challenge, there is still an incredible, powerful application here for developing countries, as opposed to trying to figure out physical shipment of cash, which can be stolen, held up. This could vanish, it could be torn, you could lose cash. Bitcoin is in the cloud, it's virtual, so it actually makes it much safer as long as we can figure out the other components of security. Speaking of security, this is the fourth big trend that Ross speaks of in his book. The concept of cybersecurity, cyberterrorism, of course we know that is all just very real right now. And the concept of making sure that you can never be hacked by the bad guys is a booming industry. How booming? Well, in 2015, just last year, $75 billion was spent on cybersecurity. In 2 years, the number is projected to be 120 billion. It's a pretty massive leap. He jokes about how if you want guaranteed employment, you should go into cybersecurity. But the reality is, as we become more connected, as we do things like adopt driverless cars and have smart homes, use smart manufacturing and do things like have wearables, all of this connectedness and availability makes us vulnerable, and it makes our confidential data very susceptible to hacking and to being stolen. So cybersecurity is going to be a massive industry going forward. Speaking of data, how many of you remember storing data on something like this? Well, we've gone from this to maybe say something like this, right? Well, now it's not even necessarily on a device anymore, but I don't know about you, I have tons of these things lying around. We love our data. We are data hoarders. In 2000, Ross talks about how only 25% of data was stored in any shape or form, and now it's over 100%. He estimates that we have produced 1 zettabyte or 1 trillion gigabytes of information every year. In fact, he says that we have produced more information in the past 50 years than in all of the other centuries combined, which is kind of staggering. So what do we do with it? Why do we love our data so much? Well, that's where big data comes in. Companies like this are one of my favorites. Thank you, Google Scholar. They help make sense of the world. Big data or data analytics is really about understanding and analyzing and forecasting trends in real time so that you can do more things with that information. So if you're a business, you can decide where things need to be shipped. If you are a research person, you can decide whether or not you need to maybe change something in your research. That's the concept of big data, and being able to mine that, being able to really make huge leaps with that is a massive industry that shows no signs of slowing down rather. Now, as that boom continues to happen, it's not going to be limited to places like Silicon Valley or Silicon Alley or Silicon Prairie, I think is the newest one in the heartland. Instead, what you're going to see is the expansion of markets really, truly globally, as long as they have some key things together. What are those key things? Well, it's things like domain expertise. Of course, you have to have knowledge. You have to have strong government systems that really work in lockstep and provide strong education systems for its citizens. Ross talks about how cities are the new incubators, and those become great focal points for new ideas to flourish and to congregate and to be exchanged. And then he also talks about how you could have all those things, but if you don't have empowered women, educated women, playing key roles both in the workplace and in society in general, then it's still, you're not maximizing what will come and taking advantage and setting yourself up as an organization or as a nation for, again, this global economy of the future. Lastly, he talks about the importance of language. And he has an interesting take on what he calls language. He says that, if as a parent, he really feels very strongly that his children need to learn about a technical language and a linguistic language. I would say that he actually makes an argument less about the technical language and more about the importance of critical thinking and the understanding of systems thinking or analytics, the ability to take something that's very complex and reduce it down to its components, and being able to then to speak of it very fluently and very eloquently, again, will really separate you from other people going forward. The other piece is he talks about the need to be globally aware. And so he advocates quite strongly that if you have children, teach them a second language, teach them Chinese, teach them something that they can use going forward in a different culture. And if they can't or won't, or you can't give them that, then at least expose them to other cultures. This concept of global awareness, this concept of, it's not just an American mindset, but it will be lots of countries playing together on a very flattened field. He likens the new industries of the future and their hubs and centers being kind of like ancient Rome, where those power centers will congregate perhaps in very specific places, and they will own it, and all of the surrounding areas will send in their tribute to Rome. Kind of an interesting take, if you ask me. But in the end, I was glad that I read the book. I thought that Ross had some great points to make. Now, I will tell you, as an academic student, I do wish that he had gone ahead and maybe added some hard research to support the incredible anecdotes and interviews that he did, because I think it would have just provided a little bit more strength and really just taken that next step. I will say that it is an incredibly well-documented book, and it's very recent. I don't think I saw anything that was less than 2000 in terms of supporting evidence. It was also very nicely written. I mean, it was very easy to read. It was something that it was engaging, something as challenging as concepts like genomics and Bitcoin and codification of money and weaponization of code are not friendly or easy topics. And he does a good job of, again, breaking them down, making them simple, and making them intriguing, and you wanted to read more. So overall, I give it definitely 2 thumbs up. I think if you are interested in understanding where the trends might be going, what's around the future, then I would say go ahead, pick up Alec Ross's Industries of the Future, grab your friend and settle in maybe with a nice little cup of coffee, and go ahead and enjoy what his vision of the future might be. I'm Annalisa Liefers, and for Leadership in Technology at Dallas Baptist University, that's my review.